Good morning and welcome to our Facebook Live, and also if you're watching this later in YouTube on my channel, Pleasure for Health. That's great. It's great to see you. My name is Ailsa Kepi. I am a somatic coach and therapist, and I've been working in the realm of relationships for many, many years. I would say my entire life has been really predicated on learning about relationships, and especially how to bring our own self, our true self, to a relationship and not be stuck in old patterns and habits which maybe got set there from early childhood, potentially our attachment wounds from very early experiences with our caregivers often leads to a pattern that we end up living over and over and over again. And sometimes these patterns are not something we want to keep living. And so it's helpful to look at some real ways to overcome these patterns. So let's dive in. And if you want to find out more about me, you can check out my website, ailsakepi.com. That'll lead you to a couple other places where I have offerings set up. I do have an in-person retreat center. I also do a lot of online work. So please do check, do some research there. I'm excited about this topic because I think this is a question I get asked a lot, especially by new clients coming in. They want to know what is different, like what could be different? How could I actually make change in my life? How can this actually, make a difference? I don't just want to think positively and everything's going to go away. And I think that's true. We've been brought up potentially in the last 2 or 3 decades with this new age kind of thinking of, if you have a positive mindset and you want $1 million, or you want a soul partner, that you can just manifest that without anything else involved. And I think, potentially that's not untrue, but I think they're missing the how-to part of that. And the how-to is actually really important. We need to actually work on integrating, having integrity with ourself. And by that, I mean, not just our thoughts, but we have our thoughts, our emotions, our body sensations and feelings, and then even the stories we tell ourselves about all of that. They all need to align in order for us to really make change. And that is trickier than you think, because a lot of times we hide things from ourselves. We think we're aligned, but we've all had that experience of like, oh, I really want, this person to go on a date with me, let's say. And part of you is totally into that. You like this person, you want this person to ask you out, or you want to ask them out. But part of you, that part of you that you may be hiding, is scared to ask, or kind of, wonders whether they'll say something hurtful to you, wonders whether you'll be able to have a relationship with this person, whether you'll be seen as weird, or all of those doubts, the self-doubts that come up. And I'm not saying we never have self-doubt, but that's exactly where you need to actually dig in, because that's giving you some information that there is stuff there that you are wanting, needing to work with. And that is kind of called the shadow work of doing our self-work, the stuff that's in the shadows that we don't want to look at. And we've just had an amazing full moon, and that's always a great time to look at it, because when the moon is the brightest, when the light is the brightest, then you have more shadow. And the better you and more healthier you get, sometimes the darker your shadow gets, and you have to dig for it. You have to really work for it. So this is still probably sounding kind of like, well, how do I actually do that? So I am actually starting a writing course, and I'm really excited about it tomorrow, called Writing to Heal. And we're going to look at some of these things. So I'll just talk a little bit about some of the ways we're going to start doing that shadow work, how we're going to start integrating and having integrity with ourselves. So this is something that I use quite a bit actually. And it's about using our own body for making change. So a lot of times, if we have had a lot of trauma, or if we have been in abusive relationships, we don't have a great connection to our body. We don't know what we're feeling. We don't maybe even feel things. So we kind of walk around like a head without a body. And so when you really get down into the body and look at sensations, some people don't really even know what that is. So our first step is to actually look at what is a sensation? What can we actually feel in our body? And things like our five senses might come to mind. So you have, sight. What do you see? What do you hear? Smell, taste, feel, touch. These are some things you can work with. And you can imagine that's a whole range of things to work with. So you might, let's take smell. Let's say you take a couple of different smells, some scents. And you could even use something like an essential oil or your cup of coffee in the morning. You can smell that scent of, let's say, coffee, or you smell that pine needle scent. That is your sensory kind of intake. You're taking in some physiological information, and your brain is creating a perception around that. Now, already just in that sensation, there's already a lot happening in your brain, and you already process that in a particular way. And our brain tends to figure out a way to process stuff and then continue to process it that way. So that's why sometimes a particular scent will trigger you to have a certain memory. If rose petals trigger you to remember your grandmother's perfume, or lavender's one. My grandmother I don't know what they did back then, but there was a lot of lavender going around. So you might find that triggers particular memories. And so we have a perception. If you smell, something disgusting, that might make you recoil, like kind of, ooh, like it's disgusting kind of smell. You would have a perception of that, and then you would maybe move away from it. So at that sort of sensation level, you are already processing some information. And that's just one sense. You can also have things like vibration or temperature. Some people will sense different temperatures. If you're really disconnected from your body, you may have had the experience that you don't really notice what temperature things are at. You might be sitting in a cold room for a long time before you realize that you're shivering. You might be sitting out in the sun, and it takes a while before you realize that you're hot. So these types of sensations are being already taken into our brain, and we have certain perceptions about that. Sometimes it's like if you're too hot, then that gives you a perception of being in danger, let's say, or too cold or whatever. So really narrowing in on what the sensations are that you sense with your physical body. This isn't a positive thinking, mind exercise or even an emotional exercise. This is actually a sensation. What can you feel in your body exercise? And so you can have triggers and memories that are connected to the sensations that you notice. Certain colors may have triggers, certain scents, certain sounds. We all know that kind of story of the person with PTSD that, there's a firecracker goes off and they run for cover. They're not doing that consciously. That's a sound that has a particular sensation, and then you hide because in your world that means danger. So sensations are really important to begin to work with. And learning, you can put yourself through some different sorts of sensations just to kind of bring yourself into your body. And often that is a nice way to ground yourself, is look around the room, notice different colors, feel the texture of your clothes, feel a touch on your cheek or something like that, you can bring yourself back into the present moment, which really is important with any kind of trauma stuff that's going on if it puts you into a memory state. So that is really important to understand, that our body is taking in that information at that level all the time. And so if we're sitting in our heads, not paying attention to our body, you can see how we have a lack of integrity. We have a cutoff point here where I could be thinking, I'm really in a good place. I'm so calm, but our body is feeling the vibration, is feeling the fear of being in a cold place, is potentially smelling something that is noxious, that is, you could be having all of those sensations, but not really letting that come into your conscious awareness. And so this is where a lot of our habitual responses are coming from, this unconscious, subconscious place where we're not aware of it. And so often when we're then trying to go out, go on a date or meet somebody new or have a relationship, we're responding to these subconscious sensations in a way that, we will react to that rather than what our brain is telling us, or, it will be out of integrity, right? We'll have this kind of like, kind of a disgust because of something else underlying, but on top we're telling ourselves, this person is really nice, they're saying really important things, I should really like them, right? There's our brain kind of overriding or not being in the same, in sync with our body. So if that happens, we end up giving mixed messages a lot, and people will notice that about you. And they'll be like, why is she saying she's okay when I'm getting the sense that she's not okay? And so that's, we've all had those experiences, I think, with someone when we feel like they're saying something, but it doesn't give you the right vibe. And, if we are not sensing that in ourselves, I think I've done a few other videos in here about how we're not going to sense that in someone else. And if someone is manipulative or narcissistic or abusive, often they're not telling you the truth of who they are either. But if we're not being in truth about our own body, not listening to our own sensations and what our body is saying, and we're only living from the neck up, we're often taken in by a really slick talker or someone who seems like they have got it all together, even though if we really listen to our intuition, our subconscious body's sensations, if we took some stock into that and made a relationship in ourselves, we would probably no doubt understand that and feel it and be more able to discern a healthy person when we meet them as well. So it's important to understand these different levels. And that's just one level. We have an emotional level. We have a thoughts level. We have emotions about these sensations. Like if you feel cold and then you feel, let's say, sad because you're cold, because that reminds you, it's sort of, it's an emotional, like I'm sad and cold and kind of cold, hungry, waif-like. We can start having thoughts about that too. I'm always left out in the cold. Nobody likes me. I don't have warmth around me. And then, we make up a story about that we end up living into, such as, I'm always out in the cold. Nobody cares about me. I don't know how to have warmth in my life. All of that. I don't deserve love. These are all coming from that sensation potentially of just feeling cold. And there's potentially, and I say this potentially because we have to learn this relationship with ourselves, but potentially helping yourself feel warm would help. Put a warm blanket around you. You're going to feel 10 times better already. And then you maybe can change the feeling. You can say, oh, I feel comforted. I feel loved, just by putting the blanket around yourself. Now I'm feeling and thinking about, how I'm so lucky that I'm able to be warm, and I would love to share my warmth with someone else, and I'm available for love. And you've already redirected that entire story that you had, instead of letting yourself stay cold and trying to fix everything in your head, you're giving your body what it maybe would make it more comfortable or would help in that circumstance, and ends up changing all the levels above that subconscious level. And this is kind of the work that we're doing with, it's called somatic work, where we're using the body for this information that we can then repattern the emotions and the thoughts and the stories. Because all of that, emotions a little bit are kind of primary emotions happen, but definitely the thoughts and the stories that we tell ourselves about all that stuff, we have choice around how we navigate that if we're aware of it and we can be in integrity with what's going on. So it's super interesting work. I do find that writing is a great way to work with this, because in imaginative writing, we can put ourselves, into that mindset of looking at describing a sensation. If I'm describing the sensation of, holding my pen, I can feel the cold smoothness, the roundness with the little catch here, and my fingers, slide up and down easily. I can feel it's something I could grab onto, and then I can start saying that gives me a sense of security and a sense of creativity holding a pen. And then I can have thoughts about that. I'm excited to see what I'm going to write today, and I wonder, that comes to mind. And then I could have a story about that I'm a creative person filled with really good ideas, and I can't wait to share those. So all of that comes from that initial sensation of picking up a pen and feeling the smoothness of it. So noticing all those little things. So it's really great practice as a writer, so you can start writing these types of things. So if any of you are interested in joining that, there are still spaces for that class. We're starting tomorrow night. It'll be 7 p.m. Atlantic time, which is 6 p.m. Eastern US time. And then you have to calculate your own time zone there. It'll be 6 weeks, 1 hour a week, live class with homework and recording sent out for the participants. We are calling it Writing to Heal. I am going to use it for helping you work with this stuff around trauma, around our subconscious belief patterns. And that's just one thing I'm doing right now. I'm always available for a consult if you'd like to reach out to me, and we can have a quick consult to see what options might work for you. We have retreats. I work with people individually, either online or in person. We can set up a personal plan. I do have an 8-module online coaching program that was specifically created for women who are recovering from emotional abuse, and that is still there. It's actually called The Body Leads the Way, because I believe in this so much that we really have a lot to learn from our bodies. I'm not saying the body is the only thing. Our mind is definitely strong, and learning about our emotions is great, and writing our own new myth, our own mythology, our own stories is an amazingly creative act. Living is an amazing creative act, but the body has been historically left out of the equation for quite a long time. So it's one of those missing pieces for a lot of us. So if this intrigues you at all, do reach out to me or comment on the video. I would love to hear from you and your experience. And I look forward to chatting to you again. If you're joining the Facebook group, welcome. I do try to post in here regularly or repost some of the old videos if you are interested in looking around in there. I've had the Facebook group since 2018. So that's 6 years now. There's many great videos and great resources within the group for you to watch and read. So do take advantage of that as well. If you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe to my channel. That really helps to more people to find out about this work. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.